Welcome to First Class Counselors, where we give camp counselors insider tips and advice on how to make a camper's summer the best it can be.
Because you only get a few days of staff training in the summer, and it goes by really fast, and there's a lot to learn. So this is your crash course in all things summer camp before you get to the marathon that is the summer.
My name is Oliver. My pronouns are he, him, and I am the executive director at YMCA Camp Winona in DeLeon Springs, Florida.
And my name is Matt Wilfrid. My pronouns are he, him. I'm the executive producer of podcasting at Go Camp Pro. I'm a camp director in Ontario, and I am thrilled that you are here with us for this episode of First Class Counselors. Because if you are listening to this podcast in real time, then we are in the home stretch. Camp is coming and you can't stop it now, and we're gearing up for an amazing summer. For some camps out there, it's the first summer back after 2 summers missing because of the pandemic. Some camps have been going straight through. It's going to be a great year. It feels a little bit more, whatever normal is. It feels a little bit more like what we're used to. So we're really excited for this one. This episode is for any camp counselor, but specifically for the ones who are brand new, or anyone who wants to shake off the rust of a few summers away, or anyone whose year away from camp has felt really like a lifetime. So I guess, Oliver, it really is for anyone.
Yeah, they are 6 quick fire tips, 3 from Matt and 3 from me, that will help you do what you can right now to best prepare yourself for this upcoming summer.
For sure. So we've got some tips. It's practical. It's stuff you can do literally right now. Even if camp is only a week away for you, you have some time to get going on this. And if you have more time, if you're a Canadian listening to this, then you've got even more time, which is kind of nice potentially. But all of these things are things you can think about and put into practice. So Oliver, let's get started with your first one. What's your first quick tip for right now?
Yeah, my first quick tip is your backpack. Whatever you are going to be carrying on with you throughout the day, on your shoulders, what is there, or even on your wrist. I say that a watch is a really important thing to have at camp. So you're not pulling out your phone. A lot of camps don't allow it. So something that allows you to tell time. But that backpack is going to have everything you need in it. So make sure you have a good backpack that's going to be able to hold up throughout the summer. Not something really cheap with thin threads. What I look for those of you who might not know how to tell if a backpack is good or not, look for a strong material that can take a hit. Usually sometimes like some people use canvas or leather, but really a good backpack can hold up. Double stitching is a really good thing about it as well. So you can look for that double stitch, especially on the shoulder parts, so they hold to the backpack. You don't lose it one throughout the summer. I once had an old backpack, an LL Bean, that ripped at the seams because I just had too many summers. So maybe if you're pulling that lucky backpack out after a couple of years, just check to make sure it's not going to break on you midsummer. But all in all, sometimes you like having those old stuff and you just kind of patch it back together some way. But make sure you have something to hold and carry around with you throughout the day that can carry the things you need. Next is what you put in that backpack. So, your water bottle, your towel, sunscreen, bug spray, whatever it might be that that you're going to need throughout the day, put in there, your change of clothes. And I also, little trick for you, get a cheap dry bag of some sort that you can put in your backpack as well. So that bathing suit or that wet towel, it's not going to touch everything else. You can put it right into the wet bag and it will keep everything else in your backpack dry. So I know Matt and I have always talked about what should go in that backpack and what you need for a day as a show. We could definitely do one, but for right now, start packing up your things of what you need throughout the day and get that pack ready to go. Pencils, pens, some paper, notebook, all that good stuff that you as a counselor know you're going to need.
For sure. We had somebody reach out, Oliver, about that specific topic. So I'm gonna find, and he made a video about it that I'm gonna try and find and put in the show notes for this one, because yes, that is an essential tool for what you're carrying around. And it keeps everything organized and all in one place. And I remember, Oliver, this isn't backpack related, but one of my favorite tips that I remember from you on this podcast was also getting one of those laundry hampers, those like collapsible laundry hampers that you take around with you to different program areas, and the kids get to just drop all their crap in that bin and it's in one place. I still think about that. So it's a good opportunity to go out and get that.
Yeah, that's it. it's such a great tip, and I see counselors doing it during the summer, and I'm just like, you have set yourself up for success. And the thing about the backpack too, like to really hit home on this thing is, we talk about all these things you put in it, but really what you do at camp is also going to determine a lot of what's going into that bag, right? Right. If you're
Yeah.
going down to lifeguarding, you're going to need a lot more things that are more related to sun like protection. Whereas if you're maybe teaching archery and you're on the range, but the range is shady and good, you're not going to need as much sun protection, but you might need more bug spray because that shade has a nice damp area where mosquitoes breed. So you're going to want your bug spray.
Mhm.
And think about that, because it's always cool sometimes, yes, to be super prepared and have everything you need, but it's also fun when the archery instructor walks down to the waterfront and can hook a lifeguard up with some bug spray and a lifeguard hooks them up with some sunscreen, right? It's that give and take of being prepared amongst
Mhm.
staff that really can help some bonds be created. With that being said, don't be a what would the proper word be? Somebody who's like just always nabbing someone's sunscreen and be like, hey,
Oh
yo, can I
yeah.
borrow your sunscreen, man? Yeah, invest in your own sunscreen, but like understand like that trade is a beautiful moment at camp. It's like swapping jerseys, counselor style.
I would also say that you should ask your camp about what they have already for you. That if the budget's tight for you this summer, we try to give you some budget friendly options on this show usually too. But camps, like I know that at the office at my camp, there's like a ton of sunscreen. Like if somebody has to use their own sunscreen, then we've gone through way too much this summer. But if you have a specific brand that you like, or like a smell, or a specific bug spray that you like, then yeah, get that so you have your stuff. But also ask your camp if you want to save a couple bucks on that stuff.
Yeah, my thing about sunscreen, if we're gonna talk about it for just a half a second, is if you're a camp director and you're listening to this, just Amazon order a bulk thing of sunscreen or something like that for
Yeah.
the waterfront, because you're gonna need it down there. Kids are gonna forget it. And I did this last year, and the headache off my head, and I think we only had one case of sunburn last year, and it wasn't
Wow.
waterfront area.
In
Like
in
it was
Florida too. That's saying
in
something.
Florida, yeah. So that was really awesome, and it's just so easy to do. You just swipe on Amazon and you purchase it, and then I didn't have to worry about it. I just made sure it was down at the waterfront. They put it by the check-in, and the kids pretty much just got sprayed down with sunscreen right before they got in the water. It's great.
So good. So good. Awesome.
Yeah. All right, Matt, what do you have?
For sure, from the like physical to the non-physical, this is more of an emotional preparedness topic, but I would say this is your time to prepare your summer communication plans with your friends at home. Whether or not you are going to a camp close to where some of your friends are, if your friends are non-camp friends, if you're going to camp with your friends, then this the check, you done it. But I'm sure even with like family who aren't coming to camp, people who are your support network, we talk about that a lot on this podcast, is who's your support system. So figuring out a couple of these practical ways to stay in touch with people is going to really help, because in the summertime, even if you are allowed to have your phone, you a might not have good service. B, you might be too tired to communicate. And C, like decision fatigue is a real thing as well. You don't want to make decisions while you're in the middle of a camp day. People will be making plans and things will be going nuts. So these tips will be able to help you. So one, plan your day off schedule in advance, and don't that I would say don't be too rigid to that. Leave some weekends open for like when you make friends at camp, and maybe you go to a cottage or you go somewhere nearby. Leave some imagination in there. But if like you and your home friends have a camping trip that you want to do, make sure you book that on whatever your phone calendar, or write it on your arm, or wherever you keep it, so that you remember that date and don't miss it. And then again, you don't have to think about it because you know it's coming up. Now, to help, because plans change and people are more spontaneous than camp people who are scheduling themselves out, I would suggest picking a single point of contact from either from your family and from your friend group. So maybe it's your best non-camp friend, and they're going to keep you in mind. So if they're making plans with the other friends, you're trusting that, hey, Becky is my friend from home, and she's always going to think about me in that planning and ask me if I can come, or those kinds of things, just so you don't have to have, again, that second thought of, oh, am I being included by the people at home? And having that single point of contact from your family too is also really helpful for communications there. And then it just takes off the obligation of you sending like 20 text messages about, oh, this is how my summer's going. You can send one out and it can go to a bunch of places and people can respond through one person. That can be really helpful. The third thing that I've heard about some camp staff doing is that they, on like Gmail, even if like on many personal email accounts, you can set one of those like out of office email notifications, or even on your social media, you can set up a post that says, "Hey, I'm away at camp this summer, changing lives. Wish you could be here, but I won't be on my phone much." So email me or email my point of contact maybe if you want to do that. But just reminding people that that's where you are, and if they want to check in, you could, follow my camp social media or get in touch with this person to get a hold of me because I'm out having the best summer of my life. Something like that. And those are all ways that are just going to take that stress of like day off planning and, building some support systems within that that will help you when the summer inevitably gets super crazy busy.
Yeah, I really like your tip of having that person off of camp that you contact throughout the summer, because I'm now at a point in my camp career where like the camp friends that I started with are at different camps now, right? Like we all have moved up in the world and at working at different locations across the country and well across the continent, including you, buddy. Uh, and having that ability to like on my time off or I get like an hour where I'm not being demanded from camp to call up one of those friends who isn't at camp and just have a conversation with them is one of the biggest stress relievers I have during summer, of just catching up with that friend who might be working another camp, so I can obviously chat camp with them, but also like just to say hi and ask how they're doing and listen to them for a little bit, and I don't have to focus on all the demands that I have to be handling. And I think that's an important thing, is hearing about somebody else's story of the summer or story of their day, and it doesn't exactly pertain to you, and you don't have to problem solve for them, and you can just listen to with them. It's not like you're trying to listen to them so you can find someone who's suffering more than you or having more of a struggle, but it's having someone that you can just listen to and just be like, hey, look, that I'm so happy that I got to talk to you about this, and know what was going on with your life, good or bad, right? And on that other note too, I also take the time to like call my mom, who's our family like gossip queen. That's not meant to be insulting to her. She just knows how everyone in the family is doing and can keep me updated. So
Yeah.
I like call her and I get the update on like how my cousins are doing. Some of my cousins have kids. I'm going to be an uncle this summer. My brother is expecting their first child in July.
Whoa.
So I'm going to be excited for that phone call when the day comes. So have that person in your family who you call and can get that family update to, so that you don't feel left out. And then if they do tell you something major, right? Like, hey, just letting you know you're going to become an uncle, like it gives you that chance to be like, oh, I'm going to have to take a extra 5 minutes and call up that family member, like my brother or sister, and be like, hey, yo, I'm so excited. I know you didn't
Yeah.
tell me because you knew I wouldn't pick up the phone, but it's good to hear. Um,
it's
so yeah, I do
also
love that.
It's also, I think that's great, and I love. Congrats to your brother, and apologies to Mama Gregan if she's listening, and her son calling her the family gossip. But in either sense, like camp is also a really weird place, right? The problems that we have are the problems unlike anyone else in the entire world. Whether it's like a kid running, like you didn't explain things to a kid properly and they like ran naked out of the cabin and then like that was a big head. Like there's weird, I use that example. I think I've used it in past episodes before because literally it happened to me and it was like it was stressful and frustrating, and even though like everyone, it's a joke that I laugh about, having someone in the non-camp world to reality check you is really, really helpful. And to be like, okay, Matt, this is not, like they'll hear and they'll be kind and they'll also be like, okay, are you, is this okay? Is this really a big deal? It's, oh no, it's just because I'm in this bubble of camp. So, I think it's helpful for that.
They just let you take your head out of the day, right? Because it when you're living and working at the same place, every day becomes every part of every day. So you don't separate yourself from the reality. It just is. So they really help you do that, and that's important. But yeah, so my next point, number two, is writing a letter to yourself for the first day of camp. So you might be a few weeks out now. Take 20 minutes, sit down, write a letter, fold it up, put it in an envelope, and have it contain things like, what are your goals this summer? What's the feeling you want to have on that first day of camp. Really just writing to yourself and saying, hey, it's about to start and you're prepared for this, you're ready. And it's just that reminder to give yourself a little bit of that encouragement. And you know what? Don't stop there. If you have the time, write a letter, for each session of the summer, right? And have fun with it. It doesn't have to be like, hey, you got this, you can do it, da 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 da. Like, you're going to be the greatest counselor of all time. No, like, understand, like, you're going to have to reality check yourself. I had a staff member who did this one year, and she literally wrote at the top, here's your checklist to make sure you're doing okay. And then underneath was a checklist, and there were like little boxes so she could actually check it off. And like box number 1 is, has camp burned to the ground? And like, did you have to check that box? And then number 2 is like, did you lose a camper? Are they dead? Are you expecting a new camper in 9 months? Right? Like, the dumbest things ever that hopefully wouldn't happen, right? um, but like, it was just these extremes. And I remember she had like packed it up and like made sure she wouldn't like have that one open until like midsummer. And when the time came that she got to open it, she like came laughing to me. She was like, hey, look at my letter. Like, I didn't have to check a single box, but what about this? And I was like, nope, you're not checking that box. That we're good on that one. But it was just kind of funny because it was just that moment of joy she had from, I thought of all the worst possible things that could happen this summer to me. Because I was so nervous, I wrote them down. And then when it came time to like open my letter midsummer, it wasn't they weren't there. Like, these big scary things didn't happen. And I think that's okay for you to do, is write those down. And if you end up having to check a box that maybe is a little bit more extreme, hopefully your thought process isn't, wow, what did I have to deal with or handle? It's, okay, I handled that. What I thought was impossible to handle at the beginning of the summer, I handled it while I was in this big part of summer. So yeah, write a letter yourself to encourage yourself, but also like, don't be scared to have fun with it and enjoy what you're writing down on that piece of paper, to be a little more creative.
I love it. And any sort of like future planning exercise like that is going to help you. Like you said, it doesn't have to be just for the start of the summer. When you're starting to feel the tiredness of the first couple weeks, that's a great time to think about, how do I want to feel at the end of the summer? What do I like? What's my bucket list? Or like, not even. I guess it's kind of dangerous to say, what do I want to accomplish by the end of summer and put that letter away. I think our past episodes would say keep that bucket list in front of you, but also say like, at the end of the summer, this is the letter I want to write to myself about being proud of what I've done, and the highlights of the first 3 weeks rather than the cruddy parts that get you down. So I love it. I think that's great.
Yeah. And if you want to, I don't know, maybe you're more Gen Z than I am, but do, like, I know in like TikTok, you can make drafts and then they save for a long
Oh.
time and you can come back to them later. So like, do your TikTok draft of you like telling yourself, hey, you can make it this summer. And then you can, I don't know, co-op it with something you film later during the summer. So like, prep all of the TikTok videos that you want
Wow.
to do for summer and do them now. In fact, I'm going to be a little lame on this, and make a little admission here, is as I like do my scrolling through Instagram Reels, because I'm a little older and I'm on Instagram. We have a camp TikTok, but I don't really look at it too much. But on Instagram Reels, I'll save the audios because I'm like, oh, that's an audio that I would love to use for a future video for camp or
Mm.
something. So
Hmm.
that's a great thing to start doing. And that all comes from this idea of like, hey, prep yourself for those messages you want to send later in life. So that's good.
Oh, I love that. What a cool like social media it would be for someone to be like, this is how I'm feeling at the start of the summer, and then you watch them get like progressively more like tanned and campy. Have you seen? There's a meme where they're like, it's like first day after going to the Bronx, then they change 3 days. I think that would be a wicked one to do, like a real one over the course of the summer. Like this is my first day at Camp Winona. This is the second week at Camp Winona, and then you're just tanned and jacked, and kids are hanging off of you by the last week. I think that'd be super funny. Cool.
All
Okay,
right, Matt, what do you got?
that's that's my Matt is not an influencer idea. That's why I'm not the social media director at a camp anymore. Okay, my next tip is a very practical one of just I don't if you haven't been at camp, or if you even kind of forget, or you've been on your butt because you've been on Zoom because of the pandemic, you you will forget how much you use your feet every day. And I thought of this tip in our last episode. I think my Eggel was get yourself a good pair of shoes, and I put some recommendations in there. Um, but literally, you need to start walking more right now. Walking and jogging a little bit. You don't have to be a runner. You don't have to be like set distance goals, but an average day at camp, I don't know if you track your steps, Oliver, but like one day I hit 35,000 steps. Depending on your camp, it's going to be a little bit different, but like you should be getting ready to walk 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 steps every single day. And just get used to being on your feet, especially in the footwear that you're going to be wearing in the summer to help prepare for that. And my biggest tip there is like if you are at home still and you like reading or listening to music or playing video games or something like that, get your steps in that way. Just walk in place as you're playing and you can start to do that. Not for your health at all. I mean, it's going to help to take those steps, but literally because you are going to be, your legs are going to be exhausted after the first week of camp. So start getting those steps in now. The next thing along the same like physical preparedness checklist that I would give you is eat regularly too. You might be used to eating at weird times when you're at home, you know, a midnight snack, or you might skip breakfast, or just we have weird eating habits, and sometimes we eat like the same meal 3 times in a row. We do weird things when we're left to our own devices. But that's not going to be how it is at camp. You're going to have, think about your camp menu. You could ask to see it in advance. Start to adjust your diet to that. If you're a vegetarian and you know your camp's not going to have a ton of like variety of vegetable protein, you can advocate for that, or you can also just get used to eating some of the stuff that you're going to be getting at camp. Your GI tract will help you for that. And like you might not be able to have midnight snacks. Maybe you can at some camps, but not many. So you got to be able to be flexible and ready in that way too. The last thing I would
Yeah.
say is start getting enough sleep, and do it now. You got to get your sleep schedule in order, or else staff training is going to be the worst experience of your life, and you're not going to get the most out of it that you could, because you're just going to be either on coffee adrenaline if that's your camp's if that's allowed at your camp, or you are just going to be exhausted all the time. So really thinking about going to bed between 10 and 11 and waking up between 6 and 7, and working on being on camp time in that way, because that is something that is going to just absolutely smack you in the face if you're not ready for it. So being physically prepared, walking, eating, sleeping, those are three of the biggest things. Besides like acclimatizing yourself, getting outside in the sun, that kind of stuff is helpful too. But that'll help you be physically prepared.
Yeah, Matt and I both wrote our show notes for this, and before I really looked through Matt's notes, I kind of started writing mine, and I wrote sleep schedule. Like, be prepared to wake up at 7, start going to bed at like 11 o'clock, get yourself into that routine. Because if you're waking up at noon right now or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because you can do that with whatever your schedule is, oh, it is going to be a rough staff training for you when you're imitating the camp day and getting everybody up. The one tip I have for camp directors, though, is make sure during staff training or even during camp, if you can afford it, put in like a sleep day, right? Like one of the days where the kids and the counselors can, or even during staff training, just the counselors, where they can wake up a little bit later, right? Like plan wake up to be like 9 o'clock instead of the 7 o'clock or whatever it might be. Just that little additional sleep time can make such a difference to the rest of the day. We did it for our staff training last year, and recognizably that day was a significantly better day of staff training after 4 or 5 days of exhausting staff training, to just have this little bit of a break. And right, it made a huge difference. So something to add into it. All right. My third and final tip for y'all is preparing some little gifts. Now, my love language is not gift giving. My love language is down the street, around the corner, and talking about some recognizing some efforts that other people make. But some people like receiving little gifts, and it can go a long way. So here is my suggestion to you. And this comes from, again, we're bringing up mom in the podcast. If your mom is like mine and has an Italian tradition of whenever she sees something at the store, she buys it for somebody and saves it for Christmas. And then when Christmas comes along, she doesn't know who she bought it for, but she has the gifts just in case. And I would say this is like just my mom, but it's my entire Italian side of the family. They all do this. So if you go into any of their households, there's a closet that is full of Christmas gifts that there's no true owner of those future Christmas gifts, but they are on hand, right? They are the white elephant gifts. They are the cheap little knickknacks and paddywhacks that they just keep at the ready. So you can find them at Dollar Tree, Goodwill, antique shops. You can go into your mom's closet and probably take some of the things that she has prepared in there. The basement, maybe an old toy of yours, odd things, cheap things, simple things. But take them, wrap them up somehow, put them in a bag, keep them, hide them in your car, under your bunk when you get to camp, and just have them at the ready. So when you get to a day during the summer, you can go find one of your coworkers and grab one of these gifts and bring it to them, write a card before you do, and gift it to them, right? Something simple that for some reason, when you looked at your giant pile of what is essentially cruddy like re-gifts, you can say, hey, I think you needed this. And something that stuck in my head is Chris Hudson has this great line, and I fanboy you, Chris, all the time. It's, we did this thinking about you, or we did this with you in mind, right? Now, you may have bought those gifts way before summer, and we're not thinking about that person before you gave them the gift. But when you found that gift for them under your bunk or whatever, you were doing it thinking about them and trying to make sure that you could change what their mood was. So I love that idea. You give them the gift and a little bit of a note, and just in that midsummer, it may be the thing that gets them right over the edge. So that is my little trick, is give them a gift, a little card. Says, I care about
That's
your work.
great. Yeah, well, and Oliver, you brought up love languages too, and it's a great tool to try and understand for yourself. I'm sure we've talked about it in past episodes because I really believe in it. And remember, the trick behind love languages is what you give is often what you like to get. So if you see someone in the summer, early in the summer, who really uses words to encourage people, their love language might be words of affirmation. And then taking a little note and writing them a note when they're, maybe you notice they're slumping a little bit, you can give them that little note, and that kind of, that idea of a gift is just a gift in words. So anything like that to like boost the morale of a staff team and build relationships in that way too, I think is brilliant. So that's great, Oliver.
Yeah. All right, Matt, what's
Okay.
your last one?
Yeah, my last one, this is definitely a non-physical one, but I think that this is a great time to check yourself and reaffirm your commitment to camp for this summer. And I know that, there's different philosophies about, what jobs are and what your obligation to a job is in general. And camp, let's be very clear, camp is a job. It is a job. You get paid for the work that you do. And it is that, but it's a job where the impact is so significant that I have not found another, profession in my life at least, where the impact of what you do and what you say matters nearly as much as it does in summer camp. And that is not to throw shade at any other major profession, but especially when it comes to working with kids, camp is such an amazing place, and you know that if you're listening to this podcast. But a couple of ways that you can kind of remind yourself of why you've gotten into this and think about what a commitment to camp looks like, um, year round, and finishing your contract and all those great things is, first, I would say, look back at your application, your resume and your interview, and remember why you wanted to do this in the first place. And maybe that's something you can write in your letter that Oliver talked about, your first week of camp letter. Remind yourself why you got into this in the first place. It's a great opportunity to set your goals for the summer. Last season around this time, we did a goal setting episode, and every time around New Year's, I think, Oliver, we talk about goal setting. So we can send you can look back in the episodes for those ones. Making your crisis plan right now with loved ones for when times get hard. That's very similar to the support network, but like when things are really hard, who's the person you can call that will guaranteed pick up their phone? Or my rule with my best friend is, if I call twice in a row, he's dropping everything and picking it up, and that's just our code as best friends. And then also in the last thing within the sphere of your commitment to camp, think about what realistic boundaries are for you as well. What is the limit of like when you know your plate is full and camp is asking you to do another thing? How will you kindly respond to that in being able to say, okay, I've been asked to do this and this and this, and I can't do this if I don't take one of those things off my plate? A director will love to hear that, even though like when someone says yes to a request, that's great. But I also sometimes people don't know where all the directions you've been pulled in are. So think about what a boundary looks like for you and how that boundary like manifests in your body language. Or manifest in like your stress responses, and think about how you can do that. And maybe your boundaries are like, I'm going to go to bed, I don't care what the other staff are doing, no matter when curfew is, I'm going to bed at midnight. That's my boundary because I know that's what I need to be successful. Or, I'm not going to bring unhealthy snacks to camp this summer because I know that that won't serve me well. Or I'm going to have 1 cup of coffee a day, and that's my boundary. And not that those things are inflexible once the summer starts, but this is your time to really be intentional before you get into camp. And I think that's the overarching theme with this whole episode is be intentional with this next little bit before you start camp, because once you get into it, the chaos of camp, it is fun and it is stressful, and those two things are equally true about summer camp. So be very intentional about what you do now to prepare yourself to live in that fun, chaotic world.
Speaking about what you do to prepare yourself, we're going to end today's show. That's all 6 tips. So we're going to head on over to our Eggel, which is our ever growing, ever learning. It's a trick, a tip, a game, or a song for counselors to be using every day to become better. So with that, it's like 2 more bonus things that you can do before summer to get ready, or just something you can have a little bit of fun with. Today, mine is a little bit of fun. We had a Girl Scout troop out this past weekend, and I had some fun with them. And I suggest this for when you get some campers. They were having like a sandwich lunch, and we have our salad bar. So I grabbed some potato chips. And I ate the potato chips, but then I had my empty bag afterwards, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have some fun with this." So I walked over to the salad bar and I filled my empty bag with cucumbers, like slices. Because if you ever had the cucumber slices, they have a little bit of a crunch to them. So like, oh, those are kind of like potato chips. And then I kind of walked around the dining hall and like on my way to the activity with the Girl Scout troop that I was with, and I was like, hey, does anybody want a chip? And they're like, yeah, we want another chip, because they were only allowed 1 bag of chip during lunch. So like the idea of getting another chip was awesome. And then obviously I'd pull out the cucumber chip, and the first expression I got from all of them was like, that's not a chip. But then the first girl was like, I love cucumber. And then she grabbed the cucumber slice and ate it. And then all of a sudden I was like, hey, does anybody else want a chip? And then they were all eating them, pretending like they were potato chips. And what ended up happening is I convinced like 15 girls to eat cucumbers and have vegetables. And it was a lot of fun, and they enjoyed it. So there's a little trick that you can steal to get kids to eat some vegetables. And don't think about it just in the form of a potato chip, right? Like think about what other tasty foods can you pretend that something healthy is, right? So maybe you do the same thing with some like baby carrots, or maybe a thing that a friend and I did once to entertain the dining halls. We took grape tomatoes and we tossed them to each other in the dining hall, and we had to catch them with our mouth. And sure, yeah, we definitely dropped a few tomatoes on the ground, and kids will definitely do that too, but we were still eating tomatoes and being healthy, which is an important thing, and just having fun. And that's a big part of the day. So there's my little trick to you, is potato chip cucumbers.
It wouldn't be an episode of First Class Counselors if it wasn't something that we have to be like, make sure it's okay to throw food in the dining hall. Like, make sure you check with your director before you do X. But
Yeah, right.
I love it, making it fun, and it reminds me, Oliver, that like you want we talked about doing an episode of like, you don't have to be like the cool counselor or whatever, but the kids thinking something is cool, if you can find one kid to be the leader on that, then it's cool. You could suggest that you find one kid to get on board, and you can put like an extra special effort to get that one kid. If you know that like someone is really like excited about doing like cleaning the cabin, get them to be the leader of it, because it'll be easier for them to get other kids on board, just literally by association of it, rather than you trying to like coerce them into eating grape tomatoes. So
Yeah, like a good sorry, to give a second tip today
yeah,
is, to get everyone's attention in the dining hall during that same Girl Scout troop. I went up to a table and was like, "Hey, can you guys help me out? I need to get everyone's attention." They're like, "Yeah, sure," because it was really loud and everyone's trying to get ready for lunch and everything. I go, "All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Chugga 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 choo
nice.
choo." And we just kept repeating that over and over again until the next table caught on, the next table caught on, and then eventually every single table was doing chugga 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 choo choo. And then eventually I just went, "All aboard," and that got everyone's attention. I've never done that before to as a call and response, but it worked because I got that little group of leaders in that Girl Scout troop, and then others started to follow along, and eventually you had the whole dining hall pretending to be a giant train, and
That's
that's how we
awesome.
started lunch, and it was just fun. And you can probably find other ways to do that too, and there's other call and responses, but it's that showing what Matt just talked about. Find that one leader, and you'll get the others to kind of follow and lead themselves.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Okay, I have a game for you. For those of you who watch on YouTube, you might have noticed me get up halfway through the episode because I thought of an Eggel and then I thought this one was better. So this one would take a little bit of a, I'll take a little bit of an explanation. So hang in there with me, and I can also send you. I can take a photo of these instructions. Um, my good friend Barry Jolliffe, who wrote Quicksilver, I think it's called Quicksilver. There's a bunch of like or teamwork and team play. I think he also he didn't do Quicksilver. Teamwork and team play is Barry Jolliffe, and he brought this game to my attention. It's called Toro or Tora. Some people call it, and essentially it takes a couple tools. So I'll show you if you're watching, but I'll describe it for our listeners. Basically, the game is I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can play with 7 people, and these are like wooden beads on a small piece of string, essentially a little bit stronger than your regular string. You could maybe use like bracelet or like burn rope. You could use that as well. You'd have one dice, and this is like an old school Kool-Aid container. But you can use anything. The nice thing about the Kool-Aid container is that you can keep all of the stuff for the game in the container. Essentially, the way the game works is that all of your strings are on a little circle in the middle of the table, kind of, when with the string sticking out, you're sitting around the table, so it kind of looks like a spoke, right? With all your beads within a little circle. Then what happens is one at a time, a person with the cup with the cup lid in their hand, and everyone's beads are in the middle. They take their dice. They take their bead out and they roll the dice. On a 1 or a 6, you slam the cup down and try to trap the beads within the circle of the cup. Any beads that you capture, the other people get a letter spelling out Toro Toro, Toro. If they escape it, they don't get a letter. But if you roll the dice and say it's a 3, and you flinch them, like you give them a flinch, and they pull their beads out of the circle, they also get a letter for flinching. No penalty for you for not rolling a 1 or a 6, but you do that. And then some people play, you just, if you didn't get a 1 or a 6, you pass the dice to the next person, or you roll until you get a 1 or a 6. And it's just a really fast-paced, fun, energetic game. And if my verbal instructions were not great, you kind of need to, and you want to see it in action, I'll send you the instructions, and I'll see if I can find a video of people playing it online, because it is a hoot. It's an amazing rainy day game, and you can play pretty much with a whole cabin group of kids.
That's a great game. I actually kind of want to play. I'll put that on my list for the summer as a little pick me up. And I
I'll
think that's
post.
great
I'll
too, because you can probably put that in your pocket or something when you carry it around.
Oh yeah, yeah. You don't have to put it. The nice thing about the container is because you do need the lid to like slam it down. But like this Kool Aid container can definitely fit in your backpack. In the backpack that
Yeah.
you're talking about, having literally like back pocket games that you can pull out is great. And what I'll do, I'll just take a photo of this and put it in the show notes under our Eggel section in the show notes, and you can just pull it up there. And I'm sure Barry would be fine with that. So thanks Barry Jolliffe for that, and that's Toro Toro.
All right. Well, if you enjoyed today's show, we would be so grateful if you left us a review wherever you are listening to this podcast. Your ratings and reviews not only help us know what you like and don't like about the show, but it helps boost our rankings and helps more people discover the show.
And we, Oliver, got a listener email last week with someone suggesting a topic for an upcoming episode, which might come out. We're getting close to the end of the season, 1 or 2 episodes left. So it might be in this one, it might be in next one. But we'd love to hear your suggestions. We love to hear that you're passing it on to people. So please email me anytime, matt@gocamp.pro. You might get my out of Go Camp Pro office email once the summer starts, but I'll certainly respond and we'll get you on the show. Also, don't forget to check out the show notes. You can find them at gocamp.pro/FCC. We talked about a couple things this episode that will be in there. And if you go to gocamp.pro/podcast, you'll see all of the things the other 6 Go Camp Pro podcasts are talking about. And it's all stuff related to the summer starting. So some great stuff to listen to there.
Yeah. And now's the time to be listening to it. So get those listens in while you're driving to camp, possibly, and make sure that you are prepared for summer camp. So with that being said, thanks for listening, friends. And remember, camp is camp and camp's all good.